I thought it might be fun to go through all of my lenses in my kit to show you what they've done for me and why I've chosen to have them. So let's do it. First of all, the primes. I have the 17mm 1.8 Olympus prime, which I got when I bought the Pen F. It was a lens that came with it. It's an incredible walkabout lens. It's incredibly light. The manual focusing ring is great if I'm swapping between harder to focus situations or video. If I'm just nipping out of the house with my camera, like I'm taking the dogs for a walk somewhere nice or going to town, I will put this 17mm lens on my Pen F or my G7, and it's my walkabout kit. And I'm glad that it came with the Pen F because it's not necessarily one that I would have bought otherwise. I also have the 45mm 1.8, also Olympus. No manual focus ring on this one, but again it's incredibly small. I use this in my portraiture work a lot, and it's also really good for video. If there's enough room in my bag to take two lenses, I'll probably take the 17 and this one. While I'm in prime conversation, I have my Tamron 90mm 2.8 1:1 macro lens, Sony fit, manually adapted to micro four thirds. Bit of a weird choice, I know, because it's huge and it doesn't have autofocus, and it's very unwieldy, to be honest, because it's the full frame equivalent of 180mm. However, the macro stuff that you can get from it is awesome! When I was selling all of my Sony stuff to buy the micro four thirds stuff, I had my eye on the Olympus macro lens, but I could only get maybe £180 for this, and that was twice the price. So in my infinite wisdom, I thought, hey, I'm going to be inside most of the time when I'm doing macro photography, or at least in a controlled environment. Why not just adapt this one and keep it? And so far I have absolutely no regrets. It's a bonkers lens, only to be used sparingly, but it's a lot of fun. Yay! I have the 40-250mm f4 to f5.6. I bought this on a whim on eBay because I found it really cheap, sort of like 35 quid, and it's plasticky build quality. It's the very entry-level older kit, sort of kit and zoom package, which I have the kit lens as well, but I'm not even including that in this video because it's awful. I just bought this because if I needed an extreme sort of zoom, it's small and I can stick it in my bag, and why not for that price? And it is actually surprisingly sharp, so if I'm out and about in good daylight, it's a consideration. However, I haven't used it all that much. 9 times out of 10 in that scenario I would use my babies. I have the 12-35 2.8 and the 35-100, so 70-200 full frame equivalent. They both have the image stabilization built in. They're both the lovely funky blue colour, which isn't very important, but I do like it. Both of these lenses are weather sealed, they're incredibly well built. The 35-200 is all internal focusing, so it doesn't get any bigger than that. How crazy is that? This lens is so good for smuggling into gigs. I've done it numerous times. People look at it and go, that's not a real camera. That's just a normal lens. And then I get photos like this. Going back to the segue into this part, if I'm out and about and I need a zoom lens, it's going to be this one. The 2.8 stock, which is the sharpest, most reliable stock I've ever used of any system. It's pin sharp, wide open, all the way through the range. It's just amazing. I never ever do anything important without this lens. And for my wedding setup, I have this on one, and then a cheeky prime on number 3, so I can mix it up a little bit. If I'm really struggling for light, the primes are a godsend because they're a little bit faster than these two. If you are looking to get into micro four thirds and want a all-around lens that's good for portraiture, landscape, video, buy the 12-35. For the price, it is unbelievable. It's my favourite lens in the world. If I had to pick any of these, if I was like, the house was on fire, oh my god, I'd probably just die in here with all my equipment. This one, I would pick this one, the 12 to 35. It's beautiful, 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 beautiful. We also have my baby, my Olympus 9 to 18. So the 9 to 18 is the ultra wide part, then you have the stop, then you have the zoom. Those three for me are my complete setup. The Olympus 9 to 18 is slightly slower. It's a 4/5.6 lens, but it's incredibly small, incredibly light, and I've taken it on so many adventures with me. It's also really, really sharp, even wide open, surprisingly so. That sort of focal length on full frame is just washy badness sometimes, but on Micro Four Thirds for some reason it's just sharp. It's great. Most of my travel photography is on that lens. I'm vlogging on that lens now. The reason that I didn't go for the Lumix equivalent, which I think is f4 constant, is basically form factor. The Olympus one even packs down, so I knew that I would be using the ultra wide when I was walking or out and about most of the time, so form factor was a really big thing for me. Stick that on the G7 and it just feels like a feather. It's unbelievable. Finally, my adapted lenses. I have the OM1 film camera from bygone times. I love that film camera so much, and I've invested in 4 lenses for it. I have the 50mm 1.8, as does everyone, and the 35mm 2.8, which is a superbly built lens. Really, really smooth focusing and aperture, even after all this time. I'm going to do a video using the old lenses and putting them through the paces to see what kind of results we can get for photo and video. These are the two that I tend to use because obviously with the crop factor we're going into crazy territory. And my other two are... I have 2 different versions of basically the same focal length. I have an 80 to 200 and a 70 to 210, which are very nice lenses, but on the Micro Four Thirds sensor they just go crazy time, so I don't use them as much as the primes. What lenses do you rave about? What do you think I should buy next? I'm thinking a 50mm prime equivalent, maybe the Lumix one, because they're quite cheap and they look very good and they would also be good for video. And I really want to look into like the Sigma and the third party stuff as well, because I've got the Tamron 90mm macro, I had the Sigma 70 to 200 with my Sony, and I do think the third party brands can do just as well. So if you have any lens suggestions for me, I'm always an idiot with money, as you can probably tell, and I'll probably buy some. Thank you very much for watching. Subscribe for weekly Micro Four nerdiness.